This episode of Inside Transportation is sponsored by Ford Motor Company. Built on the belief that freedom of movement drives human progress, from connectivity to autonomy, AI to machine learning, Ford has one simple goal: to improve mobility for its customers. To learn more about Ford's work in mobility, autonomous vehicles, and their global efforts to improve mobility for its customers, visit corporate.ford.com. That's corporate.ford.com.
Hello and welcome to the Inside Transportation Podcast, a production of Insight.com. This is our weekly podcast where we discuss transportation trends that you need to know about to stay ahead of the curve. When my co-host is not trying to destroy multi-level marketing schemes on Clubhouse, he is the CEO of Insight.com, the host of This Week in Startups, and a contributor to All In, Jason Calacanis. How's it going, my friend?
It is going well. It's going well. I missed you. We haven't done a pod in a while.
We haven't done a pod in a while.
I'm so ready.
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Reopening coming. Reopening coming.
Right?
Did you find out if you had the place? Texas just said it's over. Yeah, they said it's over.
They're
We're
like
done.
100% open.
I'm in favor at this point of people making their own decision. We're about to hit 1 year in quarantine, and unless this is my feeling on it now, I've evolved my thinking.
Right.
I think for 1 year, as we tried to figure this out, we had no choice but to, navigate it. And, there's no perfect answers, obviously, because it's the first time we've gone through this. I think the damage we're causing to people psychologically, especially students and kids and all this kind of stuff, is so great.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people suffering from depression, anxiety, suicides, all the substance abuse, domestic violence, all the stuff that is just skyrocketing because people are in isolation. I think unless ICUs are, above their trigger for year 2 of this, it should be everybody makes their own decision.
Agreed. I agree with you.
You agree?
I do think, look,
good.
I think it's time to open schools. I think it's
100.
time to get most of our lives back together, right? But I do think the mask wearing piece of it is something we can hold on to just to kind of stop the spread. But if you think about it, I think you mentioned this the other day. I think by like June, July, you're going to see no COVID cases in the hospitals, right? Because there will be so many vaccines that were administered. People would have already
100%.
gotten it too, if you think about that piece. So there's going to be some immunity, and then boom, you get a vaccine. I mean, you kind of nip it in the bud. So I think
nobody with the vaccine has
right.
died. Nobody with the vaccine, according to my research,
including myself, because I was unblinded and I had the vaccine the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
does that mean you're totally YOLO? I think you should get like a little pin
Jason,
or something.
let's go to Vegas, man. Let's go.
I'm in. Let's fucking go. Let's roll. Oh, sorry. Bleep that out. Beep. I do believe that masks would be a good idea in stores and in, mass gatherings.
Right. Indoor environments.
Yeah. But I think on the street, I kind of don't think there's a purpose on the street to wearing them, because I just think it's for show. It's performative. I don't think anybody walking by each other on the street is going to get it. That's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
I think it's against all the science. But I mean, I don't know if you saw this last 4 days at the taping of this, we had 2 million plus vaccines per day.
Right.
With the Johnson & Johnson, they're doing 4 million shots this week. They're doubling Pfizer, doubling the other one. We have a stockpile now of over 20 or 25 million shots on the shelves. Yeah. And we've got, upwards of 20%
I think
people...
Chamath keeps saying this. He's like, why aren't we giving these vaccines 24/7? Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
And just that's get rid of the age requirement, at 7 o'clock at night, and then just keep going through the night, 7 to, 7 a.m. Anybody lines up. We just keep giving them until we hit 95% deployed or whatever. There's no reason to hold back any. In fact, it should just all go out, and we should totally be doing the 1 shot first, not the 1-2, because we have to stop this now. So just give everybody 1 shot. Forget about the second shot. We could go twice as fast. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Israel. I think they said 85% of the first shot protected or something like that. Some data from Israel, right? They've really been on the forefront of a lot of this.
It's incredible.
The vaccine rollout, which is crazy. But anyway, let's
get to transportation. But I mean, it does relate to transportation, because it does
yes.
mean that people are going to start going on vacation again. They're going to start going to restaurants.
Absolutely.
They're going to start using micro
So
mobility again. I mean,
let
it's
me ask
on.
you this.
The
This
opening
wasn't
is
on the
on.
docket, right?
Docket.
When things reopen, how soon do you think people start packing back into airplanes, start traveling, staying at hotels, all this stuff? Like from this
Immediately.
point, right? Immediately. Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you saw the viral video of a Hasidic couple being taken off a plane because their under 2-year-old child wouldn't wear a mask.
Oh, yeah, the Spirit
And it's
Airlines, right?
It's like, what are you doing? It's so obvious it's anti-Semitic. Like, if they weren't Hasidic, I don't think this would have been an issue. Number one. Number two, they're under 2 years old. Like it's right there in the manual. How do you not even know your own policy? You can't
Right.
expect an 18-month-old to keep a mask on the whole time. They're 18. Have you ever had a child? Like 18 months old. Like, give me a break.
Yes.
But the thing I noticed, the reason I'm bringing up that flight, Johan, is because every seat was taken on that flight. And I talked to somebody else who just took a flight recently, every single seat taken. So they are doing, I think, a smaller number of flights, but packing them because the airlines are up against it. But I think it's going to be YOLO central. I think people are, I think
people are
psychologically,
tired, man.
yeah,
People
1
are
year is enough for
tired.
people. And they're just like, you know what? If you're under the age of 50 and you're low risk, I think, we can't keep you in your house for the second year. And I honestly, I just think we should have let people go to the beaches, go to the parks, play tennis, do whatever outdoor activity they want. And we kept stopping that. And I think that's what caused this unhealthy debate of like, what's the proper amount of risk to let people take? People should be able to take whatever risk they goddamn want, as long as the ICUs are not overfilled, right?
I mean, this whole shutdown was just to prevent the ICUs from being full, right? And if the ICUs aren't being full or the hospitals aren't being full, what's the point of having everything shut down, right? When you have a lot of immunity now in society. So it just makes sense. But here's a topic, kind of
Okay.
moving on to more transportation stuff. Quick round of Dope or Nope, your favorite game.
Oh,
this
I love
week,
Dope. Wait, you're starting with Dope or Nope? I love it.
we're starting with Dope or Nope because
maybe we could do a Dope or Nope episode one day.
Just
you
all
got
Dope or
Nopes
there, Jason.
Oh, you know what it could be?
Well,
we could do a bracket, Dope or Nope bracket, and we just Dope or Nope to the end, and we could let the audience participate.
You're right.
A Dope or Nope bracket, and we could do like
absolutely
the best car from 1980 versus 1990 versus 2000 versus 210 versus 220, and you could Dope or Nope all the best vehicles.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
On one side, you could do fictional vehicles. On one side, you could do real world vehicles. So we could do fictional vehicles like Blade Runner Spinner, versus the hoverboard from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And then the real world. Okay, go ahead.
And
Dope
then compare them to the Tesla Roadsters and the Model S's and everything.
Oof. God, new Model S Plaid. Ooh, I'm sitting here
Are you
right
gonna
now.
get
I got
it?
my
You gonna
mouse
get it?
finger here. I'm just trying to keep my finger from hitting that mouse. Johan, it's 150 dimes. I'm just trying to keep my finger from hitting checkout.
Jason, come on. You've made enough money through the all-in syndicate to pay for it. So.
Wet your beaks. No, the reason I haven't hit the Plaid Model S is I've run out of parking spaces, so I got to trade in the X to get another S. But I think I want the X Plaid, and that's not out yet.
I think it's time for you to build a second story onto your garage, and you should have an elevator, right, that brings the car up. That's
I'm getting
just what
to
I'm
the
saying.
point where I love cars so much that I'm thinking that I need to be like a Jay Leno situation.
You got to get the airplane hangar.
If I move to Austin, I'm going to buy a hangar, and I'm just going to sit there and do podcasts and look at cars.
That would be amazing, right? You can have a whole garage. It's probably going to cost you the same as your office in San Francisco, right?
Correct. Yes.
Whole hangar, cars, podcast studio. You can put a little stage there for when you want to do live events, poker table,
ping pong, table tennis, everything.
It'll cost you like $500 a month. I mean, that's just that's the spirit
free.
of Texas, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, this U.S. Postal Service van, I'm sure you saw it last week.
I did. It looked like a Pixar film or something.
Right. Last week, the Postal Service showed off this highly anticipated vehicle. They took 6 years to develop it. To the surprise of no one, the new vehicle was panned by the public. There are some cool features like air conditioning, which, believe it or not,
Did you know most Postal Service vehicles do not have air conditioning?
Oh, wow.
It
That's a
had a
bit of
back
a tell. It's a bit of a tell when the Postal Service says that their breakthrough feature is air conditioning.
air conditioning. Yes,
Really? They got there 30 years later, 40 years later as
right.
standard?
Yeah, so there's also a backup camera,
Oh,
front and
really?
rear
They added
bumper
a backup
sensors.
camera?
Yeah,
Wow.
backup camera,
Congratulations.
Jason.
You're now in
Okay.
1990.
Yeah, blind spot monitoring, which is a nice feature. But the big controversy was that only 10% of the fleet is going to be electrified. While the powertrain itself can be retrofitted to be electric, they don't. It was a surprise to a lot of people because it didn't align with President Biden's plan to electrify the entire government's fleet. So there's about 165 vehicles that are going to be rolled out through this initiative. They asked the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, why they didn't electrify the whole fleet, and they said they didn't have the budget to do it. Here's a fun fact for you, Jason. So in 2009, the Postal Service spent $529 million repairing their existing vehicles. So those mail little trucks,
Yeah.
they spent $500 million repairing them in 2009. It would have cost 4.2 billion to replace the entire fleet, which means if they had just saved up 8 years of what it would have cost to repair the vehicle, they could have just had whole new cars.
So dumb.
Yeah, so the new vehicle is going to be developed by Wisconsin-based defense contractor called Oshkosh, and they're not meant to hit the roads until 2023. One more point here is that there was actually a bidder for the contract that wanted to do all electric vehicles. The group is called Workhorse. They still think they have a chance to win the contract over because Biden appointed some new governors to the board that oversees the post office, which is likely a bid to unseat DeJoy. So they think there's a possibility they might be able to snag the contract away. It previously said its future hinged on the status of this contract with the post office. But Jason, if you were the Postmaster General, well, first of all, dope or nope. Second of all, what would you have done to replace this fleet, or what changes would you make to the vehicle?
All right. So first of all, it's a hard nope. If you're going to upgrade these things, then you need to skate to where the puck is going, and this is just indicative of the incompetence of the Postal Service to run a business properly. That they are designing it. There are people out there
Right.
who have solved these problems. The Ford Transit Connect exists as a platform, as a world-class product already.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why would they not just buy Sprinter vans from Mercedes
That's what
or
I'm
Transit
saying.
Connects off the
Yeah.
shelf and not even be in this business? This is the stupidest thing I've ever
Right.
seen. They must be paying. I need to get the number of trucks and the value of this and what the cost per truck would be, because this feels to me like government waste at a level that is criminal. This is our goddamn money. And if they're paying $200,000 for each of these pieces of shit, sorry, beep that, please, pieces of junk. I mean, I'm infuriated that this is insulting to American innovation that they just didn't buy a bunch of Ford Transits or whatever the commodity truck is. They don't need a special truck, number one. So if you were going to do this, you would have to have a thesis that this truck is going to lower our costs or make us more efficient and therefore lower our costs. I'm looking at all of these features: front and rear braking, a parking brake, sliding doors. These already exist in the Ford Transit. Air conditioning and airbag, collision warning. This stuff is all standard in a Ford Transit.
Right.
So
Imagine
buy the
if we
goddamn
had,
Ford Transit.
yeah, imagine if they were
Idiots.
autonomous, though, right? There's no
Well,
like
that would be a
autonomous
reason to do it, yes. But the
functionality,
union will
right?
stop them. The union will stop them from
Right.
doing autonomous in any way. So
Yeah.
this is garbage. It's a nope. It's an embarrassment to American innovation. And whoever oversaw this project should be fired. Anybody who put their hands on this and in any way said yes to this or gave a high five or brought sandwiches into the meeting where people were brainstorming this, or whoever wiped the whiteboard down, all of them should be fired en masse for being incompetent. It's a disaster. Dope or nope from you?
I mean, for me, it's a nope. This van looks hideous. I would much rather see Tesla or another EV provider team up with Mercedes on an electric Sprinter that can be used for mail, right? We don't need to completely reinvent the wheel here. I mean, you see Amazon delivers how many packages per day, and they're using Sprinters, they're using, personal vehicles, they're using a, huge assortment of vehicles, right? I think this further proves, like you were saying, how incompetent this government agency is, especially at the helm, who doesn't really, of someone who doesn't really care about electric vehicles, right? To only have 10% of this fleet be electric at this point in time in our society, when, you see a state like California going all electric by 2035, right? We have to start implementing more electric vehicle programs, get people more exposed to electric vehicles. And I think the only company that's really doing this in the logistics company or the logistics side right now is Amazon. I mean, they're buying all those trucks from Rivian.
So from what I'm reading, I'm trying to find the cost per truck, and I can't find the cost per truck, but I'm seeing something like there's 180,000 of these.
Yeah, I think they
And
were
I'm
saying
trying to figure out the cost.
165 are going to be replaced. So let's see.
165,000 for 6
Yeah,
billion? Is that the
I
cost of
bel
this contract?
let me double check. Let me confirm there.
Yeah, and I'm
Let's
doing some
see.
math here, just back of the envelope.
Let's see.
I
USPS.
If these trucks, I mean, are they going to cost? It looks like maybe if they're doing a 6 billion and change, 160,000 trucks, we're talking about 40,000 a truck, and the cost of a Ford Transit, which sounds like it's a better car. Ford Transit starts, yeah, I mean, you could buy Ford Transits for, I think, 20 to 25,000 and up. So 25 to 40,000. So you don't even need to even have this program. You could just buy off the shelf Ford
Right.
Transits for 30,000 and save 25%. And you could also bid it out to 3 or 4 different of these folks. You could have Ford Transits.
Right.
You could have whatever the, GM equivalent is, whatever the Toyota equivalent is. And then you keep those vendors on their goddamn toes, and you could work them and say, listen, if we're buying this many, like I just gave you the off the shelf price. If I'm buying
Yeah.
100,000 of these, it should take 5,000 off of each one.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. But hey, let's get Jason to be the next Postmaster General here.
How about president?
Yeah, or
Trust
president.
me.
There
I
we
mean,
go.
I will say that this is somewhere where, I thought Trump was just a terrible, terrible president. But one of the things is if he saw something like this, he would lose his mind and just say no. And
Right.
I think
Yeah.
Joe Biden needs to come in here and say, no effing way, not on my watch.
Right.
We have to be more efficient. This is why the post office loses money every year, is because they do stupid stuff like this. Instead of any other, do you see Amazon making their own trucks? Haven't they historically just bought them?
They're partnering with Rivian, so they are building
Perfect
their own
example,
trucks,
yes.
right? But they made an investment in Rivian, and now they're
so they're going to
rolling
make
out
a
these
profit.
electric trucks. Yeah, no, but it works for both of them, right? It works for Amazon and Rivian, because they're able to both benefit from all of this.
And let me guess, the company that's building this for the U.S. government is almost going out of business, is what you said.
Yes. Well,
so
no,
literally, we're going to
not this
save a company,
right?
with the U.S. contract.
No. So the company, there was another company that bid for an all electric fleet.
Got it.
Their future hinged on this contract. They're called Workhorse Group. And it's likely that they're going to disappear if they don't get this contract. So they're hoping, so they have a meeting scheduled with the post office, right?
So dumb.
They want to wrangle the contract away from, what's the name of this company again? You see, there's Oshkosh, right? That's the name of the company, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens here. If you want, let's take a quick break.
Okay,
we just have one break.
Sorry, I'm getting really worked up.
Let's take a quick break here on the Inside
now I see what the next
podcast.
story is. The next story is going to get me more pissed off.
That's why we're having it after the break.
I'm going to take a break. I just saw the next story.
We're going to do a back-to-back, because you've been talking about scams a lot lately on Clubhouse. And
you're saying the next company might be.
There's 2 back-to-back scams we'll talk about.
Okay.
After the break. I think you're going to like both of these topics. So when we come back from the break here on Inside Transportation, stay tuned.
Hey, everybody. Just want to let you know that this episode of Inside Transportation is sponsored by our friends at the Ford Motor Company. Built on the belief that freedom of movement drives human progress from connectivity to autonomy, Ford has one simple goal, and that's to improve the mobility of its customers. Ford has been using technology to shape the future of transportation for over 100 years and is dedicated to solving the world's most pressing mobility issues. What you might not know is that Ford has a series of divisions that make these visions a reality. Ford X is Ford's venture incubator that unites entrepreneurs, designers, and engineers to shape the future of transportation. Ford's City Innovations team brings innovative ideas to life through community workshops, crowdsourcing initiatives, and citywide mobility challenges. And Spin, a property of Ford, brings e-scooter sharing to cities and college campuses. So here's your call to action. To learn more about Ford's work in mobility, autonomous vehicles, and their global efforts to improve mobility for its customers, visit corporate.ford.com. That's corporate.ford.com.
And we're back here on Inside Transportation. Johan, Moreno, Jason, Calacanis. We're talking about some of the week's hottest transportation and mobility topics. Some of these topics, let me just say, when I curate our roundtable news topics, I purposefully sometimes put in topics because I know Jason will get fired up.
You're trolling
and
me.
It just makes for better radio. But Fisker, not to be confused with Fisker Automotive, which went bankrupt and had its assets liquidated in auction about over a decade ago, announced it was signing a deal with Foxconn to build a brand new electric vehicle. Fisker has plans to sell the car in various markets, including North America, Europe, China, and India. Hendrik Fisker, who is the founder of Fisker, said the new vehicle was like nothing you've ever seen before and was inspired by hearing that Apple was building its own cars. Now, this new vehicle is separate from the Fisker Ocean SUV, which it's co-developing with Magna, another vehicle supplier, that it hopes to have out in a few years. Keep in mind, Jason, Fisker's market cap right now, even though they don't have a tangible vehicle available for you to buy, their market cap is $7.85 billion. Now, Fisker is going to design and market the vehicle, while Foxconn is going to supply the chassis and supply chain and assembly. So Foxconn is basically doing all the work. Fisker is just designing the vehicle and marketing it. And Foxconn, as you guys know, is a provider of components and parts for Apple. They build the iPhone. They've been trying to pivot into the automotive industry. So this is one of their first clients. Foxconn expects to build 50,000 vehicles as a part of this partnership. Jason, how many of those vehicles do you think are actually going to be built?
I mean, generally speaking, if you look at a founder's track record, it's a pretty good indicator of where they're going.
Right.
And you can just look at performance over time. I think with Fisker, he might have been a talented designer of cars at some point. I don't know which car he's actually famous for designing that is actually a great car. The Henry Fisker, like and when you have a disambiguation page on the Wikipedia, because so many versions of this failed company have existed that we like literally when you type in Fisker into the Wikipedia page, it's like, are you talking about the Karma, the Rivera, the Karma Automotive, the Fisker?
Right. There's many variations of it.
Right. It's almost like, there's been so many failed versions of this. And I think how many units of the Fisker Karma were sold? It was under 2,000. My friend Chamath got one, returned it after like a week because he said it was the worst car he'd ever driven. It looked nice, but people hated that car. And then I think the current cars look terrible. And you cannot compete with a company like Tesla that is building everything from the batteries to the solar to the self-driving software. I don't think you can make a Franken car. And I think they should call it the Fisker Franken car. It should be Franken Automotive. I mean, they're going to put together a bunch of disparate technologies and try to make a car. And that's what, Nikola is trying to do. You got a bunch of people who are trying to do what I would say are more kit cars than production cars. They feel, I don't know how you feel about it, but these feel
Yeah,
closer to kit
yeah.
cars
I mean, look,
than,
Fisker. I mean, Henrik Fisker. He's designed some very beautiful cars. I mean, he's designed the Aston Martin uh,
oh yeah.
DB9, which is a beautiful looking car. The V8. He designed like, let's say, obviously a lot of people had problems with the original Fisker Karma, but you can't deny that car did look pretty sweet, right? So
I
his
personally
forte,
didn't like it, but some
you
people
personally didn't
did.
like it?
I,
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I can't understand why some people like the shark-like appeal of it. And I
right,
do think that the Aston Martin V8 Vantage was at the time, and what that came out in the early 2000s, was a beautiful car, the DB9.
right.
That was the James Bond car, I believe. I don't know if it was. I think it was. Or maybe it was the
Eh,
BMW was the one. But he did
Maybe,
the
yeah, the
Z8
Z8. Yeah, the
Yes.
Z8. Yeah, now the
That was a
Z8 looks sweet.
At the time in the late
Right.
90s, that was I would say, again, with that shark-like aggressive front styling. But honestly, I just don't think that this person should have their own car company. I think they should design for BMW or Aston Martin.
Yeah, I mean that's the point, right? The only thing that makes this car company different than the hundreds of other EV startups out there right now is that you have the design first, right? You have, Fisker designing all the cars, but that's it, right? They don't have any groundbreaking technology. And another, news, Fisker related news that came out this week is that they're giving up on developing solid state batteries. They said that the company felt like it was 90% there on solid state tech, but the remaining 10% proved too challenging
Oh,
given the
so
constraints
they
of
gave
current
up. Got it.
technology. So they just gave up. It might
Oh,
have
they
to
gave
do,
up. I think
yeah,
that's the theme of Fisker's career.
right. But the other thing is that The
I give
Verge
up. The
also
Henry
revealed
Fisker
this
story.
week. Yeah, The Verge also revealed this week that Fisker quietly settled a trade secrets lawsuit with a Volkswagen-backed solid-state battery company called QuantumScape. I think,
Oh,
yeah,
another trade secret lawsuit.
yeah, so it's
Okay,
kind of
so
like a Anthony Lewandowski situation, right? Where an
mm,
employee joined Fisker from QuantumScape and
wow.
brought thousands of confidential documents to to Fisker, right? So it might have something to do with that, right? It's like, hey, we couldn't get the last 10% because, hey, we got into this lawsuit with the giant company that's working on this technology. So, coincidentally, we're backing away from solid state batteries. But the other thing is that they're designing the car, they're marketing the car. They're not really developing their own technology because they're working with Foxconn. So Foxconn is going to be taking care of all the electronics on the inside of the car. They're basically just designing a car. And when you see that there's so many other companies like, Rivian coming up in 2021, end of the year, there's going to be a Rivian out on the market. There's going to be GM. There's going to be all these other companies that are going to be bringing electric vehicles to the market. Now, I've seen some data from some, research companies, and they've seen customers say, "Hey, I'm not ready for an electric car," right? So there might be an oversupply of electric cars, and you have another player like Fisker coming into the field. There might not be any demand for these vehicles, right?
That is, I think, probably the most astute observation I have not heard yet from people around why this is going to fail, why Nikola is going to fail, why Fisker is going to fail. I'm not saying you're going to say they're fail, but I think that when given the choice between a company that is as stable and groundbreaking as Tesla is now,
Right.
and as
Yeah.
let's say Ford with the Mustang or Audi with their electronic car.
With the Mach-E, have you seen that Mach-E, by the way, yet
Yeah,
in
yeah,
person?
yeah. I haven't seen it in person yet, actually.
It's pretty
Um,
sweet.
yeah, so I
Oh,
think you have some pretty sweet vehicles coming from people who have suffered for a decade in getting here, and then you have Tesla, which suffered for 2 decades to get here. I just think these new folks doing SPACs and riding on the coattails of Tesla's valuation, they don't actually have the goods. They don't have the management teams. They don't have the knowledge and the know-how, and the lead is insurmountable. And so it's really hard
mhm.
to try to catch up here. And when you see the shenanigans going on and the Donnybrook around the IP, these are all red flags
Mhm.
and giving up on the batteries. These are the kind of red flags as investors that should lead you to sell a stock and then buy
Right.
the leaders. And so
Yeah.
if you had, let's say, 50% of your net worth in Nikola and Fisker, I would beg you to sell down to 1% of each of those companies and take that 48% of your net worth. And please, for the love of God, put it into something that's more stable, like Disney, Apple, Tesla, whoever, because the leaders tend to stay the leaders. And this is just a complete and utter disaster of a company. And who would want to? Cars are considered purchases, and a lot of people did not buy Tesla Roadsters and Model S's. They waited. They didn't even buy the X. They just waited until the 3 and the Y came. And I heard over and over from people when I told them, you got to buy a Tesla, got to buy a Tesla. During that first decade, they say, well, I don't know if that company's going to be here to support the car. Right. And people who bought the Fisker Karma learned a hard lesson that there is nobody supporting their car, right?
Yeah.
You're screwed. And when the car company goes away and stops supporting your car, you now have, how do you maintain the car? Tesla still supports the Roadster that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 16th Roadster ever made, which ergo is the 16th production car that Tesla ever made, because it was the first version. I bricked the battery. Somebody moved the car, didn't plug it in, and the battery bricked. And it was at my old house, and I had moved into a new house, and I was storing it at the old house while we're selling it. I was like, oh no. But at least I could spend 30 grand putting in a brand new close to 400 mile battery. And Tesla takes the service of those 2,000 or 3,000 Roadsters as seriously as they take the service of the Model Y. In fact, I think they take it even more seriously. So when I bring my Roadster in for service, they're on it. They're on it. This is a car that, they would be within their rights to almost discontinue service for it. It's so old, but they don't, right? Remember Sonos said they were going to discontinue the original Sonos support.
Yeah.
And fans went crazy. When you're a tech company and people buy a considered purchase, and a Sonos is a lot less considered of a purchase than a car, you need to know that they're going to be there to back you up if you need software support. And these cars are more advanced. It's not like it's what's an example of an old car company that went out of business and was easy to still service?
Maybe Saturn. Maybe.
Yeah. So a Saturn
they
isn't
have
much
the
different.
GM network, right?
Yeah.
So there was still a parent car company that could take care of. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, Tesla had to overcome so much to set up that service infrastructure, right?
Yep.
And what a lot of these EV startups don't realize is that you need a lot of capital and you need a lot of time. Tesla's 10 years ahead, right? They've established the sales network. 20 years ahead. They've established the batteries. They've established their own production lines. They've established a vertically integrated system, right? Where you don't have to rely on a third party, right? Even when it comes to the superchargers, right? And, a company like Fisker, right? If you're buying a car that almost costs the same as a Tesla or even a GM or a Ford, right? You don't have that network backing you up. So you buy the car, but then later down the road, like you were saying, something happens. You're kind of out of luck, right? With this, Fisker that you can't really repair. So do I think they're going to be selling 50,000 cars a year? I don't think so. I just don't see it happening. And do I think the cost is going to be very comparable with Tesla? Honestly, you know what, Jason? I don't even think these cars are going to make it to market. I'll say it right now.
If you forced me to bet, if we had to put $1,000 down on black or red, and black was they deliver 50,000 cars, and red was they don't deliver 50,000 cars, we're both putting it on red.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
I don't think it's going to happen. Like you said, the history of Fisker, the competitiveness of the marketplace is mostly why I think, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a super competitive field. And honestly, I don't think the demand's going to be there for a few years. I think the market leader is just going to be Tesla. And then, you're going to have other car companies that are going to create some really compelling options like Ford, not just saying that because they're a partner of this podcast, but, they're going to create compelling options, and they're going to have that traditional car buying experience where people know.
Well, and it goes beyond Ford. I mean, what was the gas guzzling military vehicle that now is going to be electric?
The Hummer, right?
The Hummers, that's
Hummer
GM,
EV.
right?
Yeah.
That's owned by GMC. So that's not Ford, right? That's a different label.
No, that's GM.
That's GM. So GM's going to have a very compelling one. You got the Ford Bronco. Is that EV or is that only gas now?
So that's gas, but Jason, that car's sweet. I saw one the other day. Man.
Oh, you saw one in the real world?
Yeah, I saw one in the real world.
Oh, I didn't know they were
Beautiful
available.
car. Yeah, they're
But
available
that's a Ford
now.
Bronco, so I can jump the line on that. I could call my guy.
Call your guy, man. Let's go.
Maybe I should just buy
get
one.
you in a Bronco.
Maybe I'll get you. Maybe I'll get you one, Johan. Here's the thing.
I'll take
Also,
it.
did you see some of these videos of people hitting up the V3 superchargers and getting 1,000 miles per hour added to their
Whoa,
battery?
I believe it, because those superchargers are crazy fast. They're insane.
It's bonkers. Like I was at a 250 a 250 kilowatt one, and I was getting 600, 700. I didn't hit 1,000. But I've been seeing people now hitting 1,000 miles added per hour, which is just unbelievable in terms of, how many miles you're adding. And then the new Model S is 500 mile range plus.
That's
so
insane.
You're going to be able to drive from
LA to
Vegas,
San Francisco.
LA to San Francisco, LA to Vegas, and not stop. And you're on autopilot for most of that drive. I've done that drive on autopilot almost the whole way. And the only thing that happens is the autopilot's so sensitive now, as I've talked about on this pod many times, that I'll have my hands on the wheel and it will still disengage because they've had to tweak it for so many idiots putting a clamp on it with a bottle of soda or putting a grapefruit into the steering column.
Yeah.
What do you think about the new Tesla steering column, by the way, since we're at it? The new video game yoke.
Oh,
it's very polarizing. I've never driven with one of those.
That's a good question. I love it.
That a dope or no? It's a dope for you. Okay.
I think freaking dope, man. Like
I gotta think it's dope too, right?
So
Spy Hunter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it looks like a car from the future on the inside. They've done some really nice improvements there. I think it's a killer car. And I expect those changes to come to the 3, to the Y. I mean, it's coming to the X and the S. But man, I'm super excited about that.
Check this out. This is a video game. This is a video game that came out before your time, I think. Did you ever see the video game Spy Hunter? When you coin operated game. So click the link.
Loading it up.
Click that link. Spy Hunter was like a classic arcade game, from the 80s, but it had that kind of a yoke.
Oh.
I don't know what they call that type of steering wheel, but
yes.
I've never driven with one of those. So you can't do the thing where you put your palm on the wheel and you do a nice circle like my dad used to do. He would do the big circle, like the window wax on, wax off circle for his parking.
Right.
I don't know how you make a big circle with these, but I love these new steering wheels. I think they might leave those steering wheels.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
versions.
They probably will, and
like they'll be indicative of the high
those version, in all their cars. Yeah, because I think what we saw with that refresh of the Model S is just them streamlining everything, right? They're going with that horizontal screen instead of the vertical screen, right? That they use in all their other cars. And that steering wheel, I think in the preview for the Cybertruck, they used that same wheel. So I think they're going to start using that component in all their cars because it just makes sense, right? When it comes to scaling up and buying these parts in mass, it just makes sense to have the same part for all the cars. So yeah, that was a really cool, good thing you mentioned that. I freaking love that steering wheel. And I love the fact that they got rid of the stock. What do you think of that change? No more, stock for you to signal left and right. What were some of your thoughts on that one?
Wait, you saying the stick for turning left and right?
Yeah.
Where does it live is it a button?
It's a button on the wheel now.
I love that.
And
it's almost like in Spy Hunter, that was the bullets or the rockets. I love that.
Right. And Elon said that the car is actually going to be able to tell whether you're going, you're making a left or a right turn. It's just automatically going to turn on. So in most cases, you won't even actually have to press the button. And I think that's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. All right. So let's go on to our last topic of the show.
All right, good. Let's go for a positive topic here. We'll
yeah. Positive topic. I just want to make sure you get some.
Let's end with a palate cleanser here. Something positive.
Nice palate cleanser. Nice little vanilla ice cream.
Good.
So remember our friend Trevor Milton. I think you interviewed him a few times. No, just once, right? You just interviewed him once. just once. But it was a legendary interview that is still circulating on the internet. So Nikola has finally admitted to the SEC that there was 9 statements made by Trevor Milton that were inaccurate. Now,
Whoa. Whoa. I just want to let you know, when you make an inaccurate statement while selling securities, the SEC has a special term for this.
What is it, Jason?
Securities fraud.
What?
What? It would be like me saying, buy into my restaurant. I'll sell you 10% of the restaurant. We're doing $1 million a month. And it turns out we're doing $500,000 a month. Or we have a 5-star review from the New York Times and we've never been reviewed in the New York Times. The SEC, and just the general ground rules of doing business is you can't commit fraud. You can't make statements that are not true. So what are the 9 statements? Do you have some examples here?
So I do have some examples. Some of them, I'm sure he actually told you during the podcast, is that Nikola has rights to natural gas wells, which were used as a backup to solar hydrogen production. That wasn't true. Nikola using solar panels on the roof of the company's headquarters that were generating 18 megawatts of energy per day. That wasn't true. Nikola producing over 10,000 kilograms of hydrogen at the company's demo stations. That wasn't true. The fact that they were able to get the price down to $3 per kilogram at the time wasn't true. This one is probably the most, it made sense, right? Nikola producing all their major components in-house. That wasn't true. Everyone kind of knew that, right? But yeah, 9 statements that weren't true. We'll put some more information in the show notes, but he resigned from Nikola in September, as we all know, after this investigation from Hindenburg Research. At the time, Milton said that this report was inaccurate. It wasn't true. But it turns out he did lie a lot. And this comes after Nikola received subpoenas from the SEC and the Department of Justice and commissioned a law firm to examine Hindenburg's allegations. Now, they're going to come out with a full report, but it has yet to be public. But they did admit to these statements. Some more Nikola news. They're winding down their power sports projects. So Milton had these pet projects where he wanted to build an ATV and an electric watercraft. So now they're just canceling all those projects, doubling down on commercial trucking and hydrogen. Believe it or not, Anheuser-Busch is still on board to receive trucks from Nikola in 2022, but they haven't announced any new customers. And in Q4 2020, they lost $146 million with no revenue. So, Jason, let me ask you this. How much do you think Nikola stock is trading for right now? And don't look.
I happen to know it's in the high teens.
Yeah, it's like $17 a share.
It will go down to sub $1.70 a share. If you own the stock right now, I would get out of it quickly. That's my personal advice. If I own the stock right now, I believe that it will lose at least 90% of its value and be sold for parts. What is the market cap of the company currently? $7 billion.
Let me take a quick look.
I got it. I just pulled it up. $7 billion market cap.
At $7 billion.
$7 billion with a B. I would say if this was a private market company, it would be valued at no more than 50 to 100 million. There's no assets here. There's no real management team. There's no vision. I mean, you'd be really making a speculative bet. And some suckers bought this at $93.99 was its peak value. So if you were one of those people, you've now lost approximately, 80% plus of your money. Right? Is that right? $20 times 5 would be 100. So you probably lost in the neighborhood.
And you know who lost a lot of the money is just innocent investors, right?
Of course. Well, I mean, the innocent investors were buying a momentum stock that didn't have products in market. And everybody remembers Jason's rule. If a company becomes worth more than $1 billion before they ship their product, it's likely going to fail or be a fraud. Likely.
Right.
You had Magic Leap in Florida became worth over $1 billion. Theranos became worth over $1 billion. Nikola, Fisker, all these companies becoming worth billions of dollars before they have a product that you can use that exists in the world and a customer. You got to be very, very careful, folks. And what's happening is SPACs are not all created equal. Some of them are high quality with high quality revenues. Other ones are private market companies that are going public without revenue or products in market. So you're taking on a lot of risk. And what public market investors don't expect is a zero. Like, can you imagine buying Disney or Google or Facebook or Uber or DoorDash and then Airbnb and it going to zero? It's kind of hard to believe, right? Like, how could they go to zero? They have all this money
Yeah.
in the bank. They're profitable in most cases, or wildly profitable in some cases, or close to break even. But for a company without a product and customers, it's very easy to go to zero because there's no
Yeah.
revenue to keep the company afloat. Nikola and
Yeah.
Fisker, in my mind, are going to be complete zeros. That's my best guess at what will happen.
I,
My
for one,
prediction.
am shocked that Trevor Milton lied.
I mean, the guy oozed lying. I mean,
What do you
I'm
think? So,
so
Jason, what do you
smarmy.
think was wrong with him? Because he knew he was lying. He was going on CNBC. He was going on your show. He was going on all these podcasts and programs talking about Nikola and what they're doing. Why do you think he did it, knowing that there would be such grave consequences, especially as a publicly traded company?
Um, there's a certain delusions of grandeur that can happen in founders. So I do think he did some kind of business before that had modest success.
Right, he did.
And if you have modest or moderate success, and then you see other people doing really well, and you hang out with them, and you know them, and you see the playbook, and then you start to see big dollars come in, you start to conflate the raising of money with product market fit. So I've seen people raise, $5 million for their startup really quickly because people got excited about it. But then they started to get addicted to being able to raise money and tell the story as opposed to delight customers. And at a certain point, raising money is not the hard part. Delighting customers and making a profit becomes the hard part, and scaling the business. And scaling just means going from 10,000 people or 2,000 people buying a Roadster to 250,000 buying a Model S to 2 million buying a Model 3 or Y, right? Like at some point it's about scaling and delighting customers at, in a large way. And you saw that with Tesla, right? This is a company that never had customers, actual customers using products. So there's no feedback loop. That's why they should not be going public. That's why the public really shouldn't be making these kind of speculative bets unless they are very aware of how speculative they are. And I think people look at the stock price and they see the chart going up and they think the chart going up is the company, when in fact the company is products and services being consumed by customers. That's the company. And people just get disconnected from that. It's like Bitcoin, right? Like, who's the customer? What's the product? And it's like, there is no customer. The product is the speculation, right? It's a store of value. So it's just very dangerous. And, if you're not an expert investor with firsthand knowledge of the management team, it's very hard to make these decisions pre-product market fit. Product market fit means the product is delighted by the product. The customers are the market is delighted by the product. Product market fit. It is what it sounds like, right? And you just don't have that there. Nikola will be all likelihood is zero.
Well, there you go. There's a few predictions from Jason, and I think with that we'll wrap up. This was a great podcast. Thanks for listening today, guys. Appreciate you all. We'll have some more interesting, fun guests coming up in the next few weeks.
Can't wait.
But for now, everyone, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you all next week.
Rate
Bye,
and
everybody.
subscribe.
Bye. All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.